Hi guys, and welcome back to Chaos Head NoAH. So, Takumi's on a quest to find himself a sword. Uh, I'm recording pretty late right now, so I'm just gonna get right into it. I apologize if I sound a little tired. It seemed like the store was located somewhere near Cat Street. Cat Street was a long, winding road next to Meiji Dori that ran from Shibuya to Harajuku. Apparently, it had been built on top of an old stream that had been reclaimed a while back. There were a bunch of reasons as to why people started calling it Cat Street, such as it being frequented by feral cats, or that it was so narrow that only cats could use it. But it wasn't like it made a difference to me either way. Cat Street was pretty far away from my base. It took about 15 to 20 minutes to get there on foot. It'd be much faster by bike, but unfortunately I didn't have one. I decided to take a route that went past the front of the train station, then through Shoto via cutting through Miyashita Park. Quickening my pace a bit, I crossed the overpass that went over Meiji Dori. I'd finally arrived. I was starting to get really impatient. The sheer distance was pissing me off. Cat Street was nice and quiet compared to Center Guy, and it felt much more like Harajuku than Shibuya. The stores lining the streets here were only aimed at trend chasers I wanted nothing to do with. Fuck them, TBH. Trend chaser. A highly fashion conscious person who constantly changes their fashion sense depending on what is currently popular. Knowing how out of place I was just made me all the more pissed off. It was complete foreign territory. Every last one of the assholes around me thought they were so damn cool. There were even more couples sauntering around than in the shopping district. Whatever, they were probably just a bunch of broke shitheads trying to pretend they had money, so they were likely just window shopping, LMAO. Wastes of space. I was starting to regret coming here at all, but I reminded myself that all the suffering would be worth it once I got a sword, so I just sucked it up and kept walking. In order to avoid making eye contact with anyone, I kept my eyes firmly trained on my map as I speedwalked towards my destination. Town Vanguard was deep into a narrow side road that split off from Cat Street.
ここか。
Coco? I'm gonna I'm gonna try giving Takumi a bit of a different voice here. You guys can tell me if this doesn't work. It's just I want to try and get a bit closer to how he sounds. So, forgive me if this doesn't quite work. Is this it? Eh, sorry. Even though I'd only gone one side street away from the main road, the atmosphere had changed dramatically. It was a narrow, cramped, filthy alley that no car could travel through. The street was lined with wooden houses, out of business stores with closed shutters, and the inevitable spray painted graffiti that covered said shutters. Despite how nice it looked from the outside with all its high class name brand stores, Cat Street, too, was nothing more than a superficial facade. And behind that facade lay a whole host of broken down, mercilessly discarded junk heaps. Then again, I couldn't stand the place either way. Both the bullshit and the truth were foreign territory for me. The only home for me was ESO. Even for the back streets, though, Town Vanguard had an even smaller, darker atmosphere than what I was expecting. I was finally starting to get why the blogger had called it shady. Even though an open sign was hanging on the door, it didn't exactly look like business was booming, and that was being generous. Thanks to that, it was extremely hard to convince myself to go in. How was I, a guy who couldn't even go into a gyudon shop by himself, supposed to enter a sketchy-ass store like this? I wanted to go home. No, I needed to get my hands on a sword no matter what. What should I do? I spent a little while trying and failing to get myself to go in. Not a single person came through the cramped alley. I'd already spent 30 minutes waffling over what to do, but I still hadn't seen a single soul since I'd gone off the road. All that happened was I would finally decide to suck it up and go in, but then I would realize I wasn't brave enough, repeat ad nauseum. But I couldn't go home empty-handed. This was the only place I could get my hands on a D-sword. Even though my sense of reason told me that, my instincts made me hesitate to enter the shop. In my mind, I had the delusion where the clerk came out to me. Of course, she was a cute maid, and she talked to me with a voice straight out of an anime. She knew exactly what I wanted, and she held out the D-sword to me, friendly as could be. "Here you are. Please take this sword, master." Okay, that's enough. Chill out, me. Just as I was thinking about how much nicer it'd be if things turned out that way, a lone 3D girl appeared from within the store, almost like she'd somehow heard my thoughts. However, unlike my delusion, she was wearing disgustingly gaudy clothes, the type that made you think, what Indian tribe did she steal those from? But at the same time, despite the getup, she looked absolutely miserable. Talk about whiplash. Her hair was incredibly frizzy, to the point where it looked like her head had exploded, and creepy patterns were scrawled on the bandana she had twisted around it. She said that she was a store worker and had come out after seeing me pacing outside. My delusion hadn't exactly become a reality, but it wasn't like I had expected it to. Before I knew what was happening, the clerk forcibly showed me inside, despite how reluctant I was to do so. I didn't even have the chance to turn her down. In the end, I found myself inside the store. It was all well and good that I'd cleared the most difficult obstacle, but if the store was under the demon girl's control, and everything about the D-sword was just an elaborate trap to lure me to it, I wouldn't be allowed to complain if I got killed right here. My eyes darted around the store's dim interior. There wasn't a single customer. The air was awfully stagnant and slightly hazy. The unpleasant odor of tobacco and mold mixed together and invaded my nostrils. I felt like I was going to be sick if I stayed here for any more than 5 minutes. Though I saw things that looked like products, it was difficult to judge whether or not they were actually for sale. All of them had been placed haphazardly, and there was no way to distinguish them from just plain old garbage. And it didn't help that not a single one of them had a price tag. I didn't notice it until after I'd come in, but there were a whole lot of porn and sex toys. Among them were devices you'd see in rape/humiliation type eroge, and I had no idea where to find a safe place to look. The store must have been a variety shop for adults or something. After forcing me into the store, the clerk sat down on a stool behind the counter, then proceeded to zone out as she smoked. She had no indication that she was going to continue meddling with me. She was probably a partial source of the haze in here. Even though it had been less than a minute since I'd come in, anxiety, a weird sense of pressure, and the embarrassment all combined with how sick I was feeling in the form of a disgusting sweat seeping out of my forehead. I wanted to get out of this otherworldly place as soon as possible. I had to hurry up and find a D-sword quick. I walked toward the back as I looked throughout the store. I soon found the fantasy weapons section, which had been mentioned in the blog I'd found. This corner of the store was the only one that stood out to me. Numerous pole-shaped toys were neatly displayed. All the toys were tubes of some sort. They were different colors, but pretty much all of them were lightsabers. You could tell pretty easily from how shoddy they were that they were all bootleg. I doubted they would even glow. It seemed like the light shuriken talked about in the blog was sold out, which surprised me. Yet mixed in with the lightsabers was a single item that was clearly different from the rest. It only took one look for me to know it was a D-sword. It looked almost exactly like the illustration I'd seen online. I went to pick it up. It was unexpectedly light. I wondered what it was made of, but it definitely seemed like some sort of soft vinyl. It wasn't sharp at all. The edges were slippery, and naturally it didn't hurt me in the slightest when I ran my fingers across it. Compared to the ones Senna and Fess had, it was badly designed, had no sense of weight, and above all else, it didn't give me the sense that it would sever anything with just the slightest touch. Could it be a fake? That worried me, but there wasn't anything else in the store that resembled a D-sword. Would this even give off light at all? The D-sword Fess had swung around at her show had pieces of glass embedded in it that gave off a blue light and looked extremely badass. But I didn't see a single shard of glass in the sword I was holding. Maybe I shouldn't buy it. The D-sword was so shoddily made that I couldn't help but come to that conclusion, despite how long it had taken me to get here. But
見つけて早くケンそうすれば君は救われるわ
I remembered Fess's words. Right. If I didn't buy it right here and now, I'd lose my only chance of getting my hands on a D-sword. Maybe it only looked cheap, but once it recognized me as its true master, an incredible power would manifest within it. Or maybe I'd seen too much anime, or read one too many manga. But I had sensed that exact kind of unknown power in Senna and Fess's swords. So this sword should have it too, but what to do? My internal debate raged on. The clerk came up and stood right behind me without me noticing. With a melancholic smirk, she pointed at the D-sword and muttered, 10,000 yen, and I'll throw in the free bonus. How absurdly cheap it was made me doubt my own ears at first. I had amassed quite a bit of cash from RMT, and if it was only 10,000 yen, I could buy it simply by sacrificing a single figure. When I'd heard the price, and when I'd realized it was the last one they had left, I came to an immediate decision. The bonus that had come with it was a cheap-looking bangle. To be frank, I didn't want it in the slightest. Little does he know that bangle is the key to activating it. Everything after that was hell. Town Vanguard didn't do deliveries, so my only option was to lug it home myself. Toy or not, my excitement died instantly when I realized I'd have to carry the stupidly long sword right through the heart of Shibuya. But I'd already paid for it, and the clerk adamantly refused to let me return it. This was a really intense form of humiliation roleplay. Having to haul a huge toy like this down a fancy street. Just as I'd come to expect, the Dokun couples, dollop grills, and whatever other manner of sheep that passed me by all had those exact same mocking smiles. Damn it, every last one of you should just KYS. I focused intently on keeping my head down for the rest of the way home, having delusions all the way about swinging my newly bought D-sword at the innocent people in the middle of the road, viciously slaughtering piles and piles of them. Damn, Takumi, chill. I'd finally made it back. I'd started running when I was about halfway home, and I didn't stop till I got there, so I was gasping for air by the time I'd reached my base. The ice-cold stares of the pedestrians were killing me. It was somewhat impressive that Senna was able to endure this kind of embarrassment all the time. In a way, I even respected her for it. I could never do what she did. Suddenly, a sound came from a blind spot in the shadow of my base. Was someone there? Freezing in my tracks, I gulped. The pure white smile of the demon girl who called herself Remy appeared in my mind. Maybe she'd come back. Maybe this time she'd come to kill me for real. What should I do? Should I run? I sensed a presence. The light of the sunset etched someone's shadow onto the ground. One that I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, had to be female. I immediately readied my D-sword. When I actually tried holding it like that, though, it felt even less reliable than I'd expected it to. Senna's sword had felt incredibly intimidating, and it had this sense of overwhelming pressure that wouldn't allow anyone to get near it. But the D-sword I was holding didn't feel like that at all. Maybe it really was a fake. Could I really fight with something like this? There was no way. Even if I had a real one, I still couldn't do it. Not only that, but I hadn't realized how heavy it really was until I first started holding it just now. Maybe I was holding it wrong. In any case, it would be impossible to even swing it like this. The shadow suddenly wavered. It was approaching me. I shut my eyes tight and haphazardly swung the sword in front of me. I knew I wouldn't be able to defeat my enemy this way. Even so, I had the faint hope that, as long as I had this sword, it'd somehow do something anyway. But I didn't feel it hit anything, nor did my enemy make a sound. I couldn't believe it. Could that single strike of mine have utterly annihilated the demon girl? If so, that'd be the best shit to ever happen to.
鬼、その剣何？
Hi, Nanami. When I opened my eyes, the one standing there wasn't the demon girl, but rather the real demon girl, Nanami. She was looking at me with unmistakably judgmental eyes, aka 3 bold lines. All my strength disappeared instantly, and I dropped to the ground right where I had been standing.
お前脅かすなよ。
She was the worst little sister ever. Didn't she know how shitty it was to scare her own older brother like this, let alone enjoy it? Who the hell did she think she was? This was exactly like why 3D would always pale in comparison to 2D.
別に脅かしてないよ。 いつもみたいにお兄の生存確認しに来てあげたんじゃん。なのにお兄いないんだもん。なんでナナが30分もお兄のこと心配しながら待ってなくちゃいけないわけ？ナナの貴重な時間が無駄に消えてっちゃったじゃん。お兄のバカ。
Worried? This bitch was worried about me? As if I would ever fall for such an obvious lie.
で、どこ行ってたの？出かけるなんて珍しいじゃん。携帯にかけても繋がないし。
I left my phone behind at my base. It wasn't like anyone was gonna call me while I was out, so I'd see no point in bringing it.
そもそもその剣何なの？もしかして買ってきたの？
Nanami peered curiously at the sword.
あ、わかった。アニメのおもちゃかなんかでしょ？ほんと、お兄っておたくさんだね。しかもこのおもちゃ、ちっとも似合ってないよ。さっきだってへっぴり腰で構えちゃってて、思い出したら笑えてきた。
Ignoring Nanami, I undid the lock on the door to the container house and made to go inside.
ちょっと、無視すんな。
帰れ。
If she'd just come to check if I was alive, then she got what she wanted, and she no longer had any reason to be here. She was always making fun of me, and every time she came over, she would do nothing but complain. She was really that put off by being here, then she didn't have to come at all. It was annoying anyway. It'd be no skin off my back if she just stopped.
あのね、わざわざ様子見に来てあげてんだから、もっとありがたがってよ。せっかくお土産まで持ってきたのにね。
Her voice was whiny as could be. She pursed her lips. And she pursed her lips.
お土産？
そう、お母さんが持ってけって。ほら。
Nanami handed me a bag of clementines. There were about 10 of them, wrapped up in a red netting. Weird. Something's fishy here. I'd eat clementines if they were right in front of me, but they weren't my favorite food or anything.
というわけで、ナナもちょっと一服したいから一緒に食べてあげる。
帰れ。
もう、妹がお土産持ってきて、しかも一緒に食べてあげるって言ってるんだよ。もっと喜びなよ。
What exactly about eating clementines with Nanami was supposed to make me feel happy at all? Besides, it was obvious that she just wanted to eat clementines, and that was the only reason why she'd come here. She'd been a fat ass ever since we were little, often stealing my portion to add to hers. I can't count the amount of times we'd fought over that. Nanami, unable to take a hint, waltzed right on into my base. I gave up and followed in after her.
お茶ある？あったかいのがいいな。
Why in the hell would I have tea? I only drink cola and nothing else. Nanami sat down on the sofa and grabbed a clementine. Sighing, I set down the D-sword so it'd lean against my computer desk. I had no reason to continue carrying the bangle in my pocket, so I just chucked it somewhere behind me.
あれ？それ何？
Quickly spotting the bangle I'd thrown on the floor, Nanami went to pick it up.
へえ、かわいいバングルじゃん。
Totally not important whatsoever. Absolutely not important. Very unimportant. The least important thing in this room.
これも買ってきたの？いいにしてはいいセンス。
Whoops. Cute? How? The thing was nothing more than a piece of junk you'd get for 500 yen at worst. I couldn't believe how bad Nanami's taste was. Ignoring her once again, I nabbed one of the clementines and sat down in front of my PC.
ねえねえ、なんでこれ捨てちゃうの？
だっていらないし。
じゃあさ、これナナにちょうだい。
はあ？
いいじゃん、どうせ捨てるならさ。 たまにはお兄ちゃんらしく妹にプレゼントの一つでもしてよ。
You call it a present, but it's just something I don't want that you suddenly decide to appropriate.
勝手に持ってけば。
本当？やったー。
Literal walking PMS. As soon as she'd gotten my approval, she put the bangle on her wrist. Takes a real cheap whore to get this excited over a cheap piece of junk.
お兄どう？似合う？
全然。
おっそ。お兄のバーカ。
Supposed to be a present, so why was she treating me like this? Little sisters weren't supposed to call their brothers mean names, says the guy who just called his little sister a whore. What are they teaching girls nowadays? Go play 100 eroge this in. She was grinning from ear to ear. I, meanwhile, was getting extremely pissed off.
これ気に入っちゃったからもう返さないもんね。っていうか、お兄からプレゼントもらうなんて初めてのような気がする。しょうがないから大事にしてあげるよ。
As if I cared. No one asked you to take care of it. I didn't even get it for you in the first place.
もう用は済んだんだから帰れ。僕は暇じゃないんだ。邪魔するな。
The moment I said that, Nanami pursed her lips.
そんな言い方しなくてもいいじゃん。それにみかんまだ食べてないし、お茶もまだ出してもらってないよ。
おめえに飲ませるお茶はね。
Nanami glared at me intently, hands on her hips. Before long, her eyes started welling up, and then...
わかったよ。そんなに邪魔なら帰る。
ああ、さっさと頼む。
お兄のバカ。お兄なんてみかんの皮で三つ星食らって失明しちゃえ。
What kind of threat is that?
あとバングルは返さないからね。バーカ。
Yelling in a migraine-inducing voice that resounded throughout the room, Nanami grabbed her bag and ran out with insane speed. Oh, thank God, it was finally over. Hanging out with Nanami always took everything out of me. Why did she insist on coming here every week when I'd made it very clear I was sick of it? Read the room, FFS. Oh.
ファーストメルトは期待以上の結果に終わりました。
Well, here's Nozomi.
G レートの上昇率は当初の予測からわずかな誤差があった程度です。
バイオリズムコントロールも順調なのかね。
Biorhythm. A graph showing the cyclical damages in the physiological state, emotional imbalance, and intelligence of a biological organism. The term is often employed with the explanation of, on days when an organism's biorhythm is high, they will be in good condition. But on days where the organism's biorhythm is low, they will be in poor condition.
渋谷の G レートは他のエリアと比べて高い値を持っていると同時に安定性についても特筆したものがあります。
それゆえに意図的に操作しやすいということか。そして渋谷にいる人々のバイオリズムを急激に引き上げることもまた。
実験結果についてはレポートをご参照ください。納得していただける成果を上げております。
貴様が成果を出すのは当然だ。そのために高い金と多くの人材を提供しているのだからな。
実効性については理解しているよ。この数ヶ月だけでも我が会の信者が数倍に膨れ上がっているからね。
A cult? We dealing with a cult here?
それでは プロジェクトノアは次の段階へと進ませます。よろしいですね。
Project NoAH. Chaos Head NoAH.
コードサンプルの件はどうするのだ。すでに3人分は確保したとはいえ、目標数値には達しておらんではないか。
いかにも。数値達成のためには最低でも5人分はなければ厳しい。
サンプル保持者は集まりつつあります。あとは採取するのみ。
ならばその件は任せる。
信仰の救いあれ。くれぐれも慎重にことを進めるように。
The Divine Light.
はい、心得ております。
That was a weird cutaway.
そろそろ寝るか。
Stifling a yawn, I looked at the clock on my PC. It was 5 a.m. I'd spent another entire day grinding on ESO, but no monsters had ended up dropping the rare items I was looking for. I'd been binging it for about 8 hours straight, but still no luck. That happened to me all the time, though. I glanced over to the side of my computer desk. The D-sword I brought yesterday was still leaning against it. I had set it there within reach of me so I could grab it at any moment. Speaking of the sword, the damn thing hadn't glowed at all. I'd been hoping that it'd transform into some new, badass form like the one Senna had. But I'd been similarly out of luck there, too. On my monitor, Grimm's avatar had just leveled up. My Neidhart was already max level, so he wouldn't go any higher. It's probably about time to make a new character. My third after Lieselot, I thought to myself as I rubbed my sleepy eyes. EXP sure was something. It was a well-known concept in RPGs, but I figured EXP existed in real life too. Back when I'd first started playing ESO, I'd been a total nobody who didn't know right from left, but now I was known far and wide as Lightning Fast Neidhart, the most powerful player in Basilard. Let's say the person controlling me had lost a chunk of my EXP for some reason or another. If that had happened, then would it make complete sense why I'd forgotten things? Then it would. That could also be where the discrepancies in my memory had come from. Things like Shogun and the Demon Girl. Before a chunk of my EXP got wiped, maybe it was perfectly normal for me, the person controlling me, to post in chat rooms under the handle Shogun. And for me to live like a complete normie with the Demon Girl. Oh, that just wasn't possible. But if it was possible, then maybe I used to possess an incredible power that would allow me to oppose the Demon Girl. Was I the only person who thought like this? I didn't really feel like it was a particularly weird way of thinking. Human beings could only really make judgments based on their own sense of values that they'd come up with themselves. So maybe it wasn't just me living my day-to-day life making the wrong choices, but everyone in the entire world. Back when I was little, I'd gone to the dentist and I remembered them telling me, "You did such a good job putting up with that much pain. You were a very good patient." At the time, I thought I was amazing for making it through to the end, and I felt really proud of myself. Thinking back on it now, though, that comment was probably based on the degree of pain felt compared to the progression of the cavity. But even if the level of pain was the same, there would be people that could bear the pain, and there would be people who couldn't. In other words, I came to realize that how someone recognized and felt such sensations completely depended on the person. Childbirth, for example. I'd often seen on the internet that women could endure the pain of it, but it would be completely impossible for men. Another example would be marathon runners. Maybe they excelled not because of their physical strength, but because of their ability to endure pain. There were also sadists and masochists. If there were people that found pleasure in being hurt, there would also be people that derived pleasure from hurting others. In other words, I believe that the way people felt things, along with their ability to handle pain and suffering, all varied from person to person. Perhaps the level of pain and the toothaches and headaches I got from time to time actually far surpassed the limits of pain an ordinary person could take. If that were true, then perhaps if I'd passed the same pain on to someone else, the sheer agony would cause them to go into shock and die. The conclusion I ended up coming to as a result of this line of thinking was more or less a self-righteous delusion. That perhaps I was special.
特殊な人間か。っていうか、何を大げさな。
Although I denied it, I was sure that every person had delusions like this. Every man longs to be the strongest in the world. Every human being wants to think that they're special, that they're the chosen one. We all want to think that a dramatic story full of twists and turns, like the ones you'd find in TVs and movies, is waiting for us in the future. The so-called desire to be a hero, or to be blunt, textbook Chunibyo shit. Of course, even I had those kinds of desires. It could very well be my destiny to triumph over the demon girl. But if that really was my destiny, and I had to make it come true, I need a number of conditions to be met first. At the very least, I absolutely needed the ability to use cheats. Be it cheat codes for special attacks, or maybe even a god mode of some kind. I didn't want to deal with any pain or fear. Cheat. Video game terminology. To modify game data using game-altering tools. In recent years, many video games have been equipped with cheats intentionally by the developers. Secret commands are one type of cheat code. If I couldn't cheat in some way, or in other words, if I was supposed to achieve that with my own power, there was no way I'd be able to do it. Which is why, if the person controlling me had lost all my EXP, that would be a huge blow to me. A super effective one. I just barely got to school on time. It probably wasn't the best idea to stay up playing Vidya until early in the morning on a school night. I'd have to run in order to make it on time. When I got to the classroom door, I stopped and took deep breaths to try and catch my breath. I couldn't act in a way that'd make me stand out to my classmates. For me, even something as being late would be fatal. If the Dokyun's eyes all zeroed in on me, my life would be over. I slowly made my way into the classroom, keeping my head down. I couldn't let myself make eye contact with anyone. Of course, I didn't give a mindless greeting like "morning" either. Trying to make my presence as undetectable as possible, I made myself invisible and turned toward my seat. That was how I always did things. And today was no different. I made it to my seat without any issue and sat down. Soon after, I laid my head and arms face down on the desk, and from there, I was safe until homeroom started. But I only got to relax for a split second before someone's hand clapped against my back.
ようタク、今週は3回も学校来てんじゃねえか。真面目だな。
Miss Me-kun again. Even though he was really getting on my nerves, I'd feel bad if I ignored him, so I started to reluctantly raise my hand, only to hesitate. Was this Miss Me-kun the real one? 2 days ago, I'd done what the demon girl told me to and called him. When I talked to him, he'd been very clearly acting strange. I mean, he told me that Remy was our classmate as if it was the most obvious thing in the world, which I hadn't expected at all. Maybe the demon girl had brainwashed him. Or maybe it was something else. Maybe the person controlling him had been switched out.
おい、どうした？早くも爆睡モードか？
An electronic sound suddenly rang throughout the classroom. I felt a faint vibration near my chest. It was my cell phone. Shit, now of all times? What kind of asshole would call at a time like this? Not only was my phone going off, but even though I was sure I'd set to vibrate, the ringtone was going off too. I guess I must have messed up the settings.
お、鳴ってるぞ、タク。
Yes, I know, god damn it. Should I just answer it? If I did that, Misumi-kun would know I was faking being asleep. Besides, I didn't like talking on the phone. But also, if I didn't pick up, it would annoy the rest of the class. And considering how it was ringing loudly throughout the classroom, it had to be doing that already. I wasn't supposed to be standing out. This was really, really bad.
おーい、出ないのか？マジで寝てる？
Damn it. While I had been freaking out over what to do, I'd already lost my chance. I couldn't move now. The sound and vibration stopped. The call must have gone to voicemail. I let out a sigh of relief, soft enough that Misumi-kun wouldn't be able to hear it. It was definitely the right call for me to have figured out how to use the voicemail function.
なあ、タク、相手は誰だ？まさか女か？この前一緒に帰ったあのメガネの子だろ？そうなんだろ？
Damn it, you're so annoying. I just wanted him to stop bothering me. That phone call had already made me stand out way too much. Had Misumi-kun always been this persistent? Though he had always been way too friendly with me, I thought he had at least had the capacity to take a hint.
やめなよ。
I heard a voice from right next to Misumi-kun.
そっとしておいてあげたら、大臣。
Oh, what, am I supposed to do something? Oh, I guess I pressed X somehow.
なんだか疲れてるみたいだし。
She was here in my classroom, like it was the most normal thing in the world.
どうせゲームのやりすぎだろ。お前、タクに甘すぎるぜ。
だって大臣は女の敵だし、そういう人には優しくしません。
They were having a friendly conversation like it was the most normal thing in the world. She was blending in like it was the most normal thing in the world. I was too scared to look up. I didn't want to acknowledge that she was there.
ま、別にお前に優しくしてもらわなくても、俺には優しくしてくれる女はたくさんいるんだよ。
だからそういう発言が良くないんだってば。彼女さんが聞いたら泣くよ。今の大臣の彼女が誰だかわかんないけど。ほら、チャイム鳴った。先生来るよ。
the demon girl really been my classmate all along? No, there was no way. She hadn't been here 2 days ago. Or at the very least, the only person that'd spoken to me that day was Misumi-kun. I couldn't have gone to school yesterday, so I wasn't sure about that one. But when I came today, she was here. How? How had she managed to worm her way in? Sorry if my voice is being so inconsistent right now. I am trying to because I'm not satisfied with my current Takumi voice. I'm trying to make something that I feel like is close to him. So I'm kind of just improvising as I'm going through this, trying to get a feel for his voice. Anyways, everyone took their seats once the sound of the bells announced the start of homeroom. Sensing that, I looked up cautiously. I surveyed the room with just my eyes. I wanted the voice from earlier to have just been an illusion. In order to prove to myself, I needed to make sure that the girl was nowhere to be found in the classroom. I didn't see her. I didn't see anything that even remotely resembled her. Did that mean she really was a hallucination? My seat was in the 5th row from the front. There were 9 rows in total. She wasn't in any of the rows in front of me, which meant she was behind me? But I couldn't turn around. I couldn't allow myself to stand out. Damn it, this was so frustrating. Was she really here in my classroom or not? I didn't feel the chills on the back of my neck. No one was looking at me. I didn't feel a gaze. Was she here or not here? Which is it? Schrodinger's Remy. Still staring at the surface of the desk, I tried to detect her just by her presence alone. And right as I tried, I heard my homeroom teacher enter the classroom. I didn't remember the teacher's name. I had a feeling that it was Tsukaji, or Tsukada, or at least something like that. He was a PE teacher that had graduated from an athletic college, and he was a total musclehead. However, he didn't really act like it, nor did he employ corporal punishment like one might expect him to. Is that even allowed? If anything, he was the type of teacher that knew how to take a joke. For some reason, the class all started murmuring about something. But right now, I was occupied with trying to detect the demon girl. Did I really expect to be able to sense her by presence alone? This wasn't some manga. Was I an idiot?
今日から転校生が入ることになった。
My homeroom teacher mumbled that to the class. Oh, so that was why the room was so noisy.
ほら、折原、みんなに挨拶しろ。
I didn't hear the supposed transfer student say anything. Oh, is this, CoZ, that girl we, saw in that cutaway? I didn't hear the supposed transfer student say anything. Is there really one here? I glanced toward the door. And sure enough, there was someone there. Okay, so apparently this is a NoAH exclusive delusion. This was not in the original. Interesting. But, says to go neither, so I guess that doesn't really matter all too much. She was extremely petite, probably even more so than Nanami. She looked fairly timid, emulating that Moe gets bullied all the time archetype. If I had to choose, she was probably around mid-tier when it came to 3D girls. For some reason, she was looking down at the floor, her eyes filled with tears. Scattered whispers grew to murmurs as the transfer student maintained her silence. So, in order to comfort her, the teacher placed his hand on her shoulder.
ああ、どうやら折原は緊張しているようだな。よし、挨拶はいい。みんな、この子は折原
Yep.
梢だ。仲良くしてやってくれ。折原、席は一番後ろだ。席についていいぞ。
The transfer student made her way to the back without saying a word, keeping her head low to the ground. Her seat was 4 rows behind mine. Should I pretend to watch her so I could catch a glimpse of the people behind me? Problem was, I draw a lot of unwanted attention to myself. Dude, no one cares who you're staring at in class unless you're, like, doing it for, like, 10 seconds or something. I didn't want any dokuns trying to pick a fight. Don't go staring at her just because she's cute, or some total BS like that. I was at a loss for words what to do. Should I look now, or should I wait until class is over? My head still firmly pressed against my desk, I squeezed my fists tightly. Forget it. I was a coward. Just the thought that if I turned around, my eyes would meet with that girl's sent shivers down my spine.
この人似てる。
Oh, a telepath. The transfer student walked right by my seat. Taken aback, I glanced at her face. I then realized that, without even thinking, I'd looked up. Oh, it's a D-sword. The transfer student stopped at my desk, if only for a split second. But she didn't look at me. In that moment, however, I saw that she was carrying what looked like an enormous slab of raw iron. Iwa just has a thing for, small women with big weapons, I guess. No wonder she's your profile picture. What the hell? But when I blinked, the slab of iron was gone. What was that just now? Was my mind playing tricks on me?
同じクラスでよかった。
That was all she said. The transfer student then resumed walking, leaving my desk behind. Had she been talking to me? Why had she talked to me out of nowhere like that? I was like her? She was happy we were in the same class? Did we know each other? No, definitely not. I'd never seen her before. Unless she meant to tell me she was some childhood friend who I'd completely forgotten about until now. Yeah, no, that only happened to Rogue. Was I actually becoming popular after all? Or maybe... could the transfer student be one of the demon girl's underlings? If so, then the demon's net was closing around me even tighter. I was running out of places to hide. All my new fears and doubts zoomed through my mind at No. Man, coming up with a voice is so hard. He's got kind of like a mid-range deep voice, but like it's also kind of whiny and shy. All my new fears and doubts zoomed through my mind at 1,000,000 kilometers an hour, and before I knew it, homeroom had ended. First period would begin in about 5 minutes. Misumi-kun rushed over to the transfer student's desk. Knowing him, he was gonna try to lay the moves on her. The other students were clearly interested in her too, and the room had grown louder than usual. At a glance, it may have seemed like a casual, peaceful, ordinary thing. And he's also kind of monotone when he talks, but pretty emotional otherwise. But for me, it was like being caught deep within enemy territory. My heartbeat was going crazy. Anxiety filled my head to bursting, and so much as lifting a finger felt like more than a one-man job. My brain was in the midst of a civil war, one side urging me to turn around, the other side warning me not to.
Taku?
My breath caught in my throat. My mind went completely blank. A voice had come from directly behind me. She really was here. That girl really was here after all.
具合悪そうだけど、平気？
I needed to run. I needed to run away as fast as I could. Despite that, my legs were shaking so violently that I didn't think I could even stand. While I was frozen solid, that demon girl, Sakihata Rimi, circled around to the front of my seat.
汗びっしょり。風邪でもひいたんじゃない？
Just like 2 days ago, she spoke as if she were concerned about me. Just like 2 days ago, she held out her floral-scented handkerchief. I didn't accept the handkerchief, hurriedly wiping the sweat from my forehead on my own.
なんて。
何？
I couldn't look her in the eye, but from how she spoke, I could tell she had a smile on her face.
ねえねえ、さっき何話してたの？
Mimi crouched down, resting her chin on her hands. Now at eye level with me, she peered at my face. Is she hitting on you? Come on, Takumi. Is she hitting on you? I gotta establish my territory, Takumi. Tell me! I quickly looked away. I felt like the anxiety would tear my heart right open at any moment. Damn it, why wouldn't she just let me go? Someone, please help me.
すっごく気になる。
What was she talking about? Who was she asking me about?
転校生。あの子がタクの机の横を通るときに小声でさ、ボソボソーっと。もしかしてあの子と知り合い？
Mimi was still smiling. Was it just me, or was her tone more of a probing one than an actually curious one?
タクってリアルの女の子に興味ないんじゃなかったっけ？もしかして本当は興味あるの？
Where was she going with this? Was her plan to probe me for personal information and then exploit it for her own gain? At the end of the day, I really didn't give a damn about 3D girls, just like I always said in that sour voice of mine.
じゃあさ、私にも実は興味あったりする？
An icy chill ran down my back. Despite having just wiped the sweat off my forehead, I could feel moisture all over it. Was that a threat? Or could it be that she was inviting me to become her ally? Or maybe she intended to seduce me, acting all moe so she could lure me into a trap. All sorts of alarm bells were going off in my head. I shouldn't be talking to the demon girl anymore. If I did that, I'd be signing my own death warrant.
タク？
I'd hit my breaking point. In a panic, I stood up and dashed for the exit. knocking into several desks on my way out. I ran straight up the stairs without looking at anyone and came out on the empty roof. It didn't seem like she chased me. Even so, I couldn't allow myself to relax just yet, so I hugged my knees and decided to hide up for a little while in the shadows. My knees were trembling. I couldn't believe that I had managed to run in this condition. I guess it just showed how desperate I was. I was tired of this reality. The D-sort I'd gone out of my way to buy hadn't been useful in the slightest. I obviously couldn't bring it to school with how much it'd stand out either. I'd been careless. 2 days ago, when Misumi-kun told me that Rimi was our classmate, I'd figured that he was either spewing some bullshit or just outright deluding himself. But she really was my classmate, or at the very least she had become one. There was no point in trying to figure out how she'd managed to worm her way in. She was a demon. She could do things that humans were incapable of with ease. Maybe she'd brainwashed my whole class. Maybe she'd brainwashed all the teachers instead. I couldn't go to the hospital anymore, and now I couldn't go to school either. And while Yua was at Cafe, and Shogun always appeared online. The demon girl and her underlings were no doubt getting closer and closer to me, continually hitting me with psychological attack after psychological attack as they did it. Maybe I shouldn't leave my base at all anymore. There were enemies in danger at every turn in reality. They had disturbed me and threatened my peace, even though all I wanted was to live a quiet life, bothering nobody, and being bothered by nobody. I looked up the blue sky. It floated calmly above me as the wind blew white clouds across its breadth. How nice would it be if I could become one of those clouds? Around 3 hours had passed. I'd stayed in the same place the entire time without moving. I didn't sense anyone else coming up at the moment. Dude, you're gonna get roasted. Something tells me Takumi doesn't exactly invest in sunscreen. I could finally breathe. The problem, however, was what came after. During break, there would always be students that'd come up here to eat lunch. Wait, no, it's October. My joke doesn't work, damn it. There would always be students that'd come up here to eat lunch. That was why the best way out of this was to escape during fourth period and make a break from my base. It messed up my minimum attendance chart, but I didn't possess even a single ounce of courage that allowed me to return to the classroom where the demon girl was. I decided not to worry about the fact that I had left my bag in the classroom. All I had in there were textbooks, my wallet, my keys, and anything else important would be in my uniform pockets. I hoped. Growing slightly nervous, I searched my pockets. Wallet, keys, cell phone, they were all there. That was when I remembered that someone had called me. I'd been pretty freaked out at the time, not as much as when Rimi had talked to me.
一体誰だ?
I couldn't think of anyone who'd call besides my family. It would make the most sense if it was Nanami. She never thought about whether she might be bothering me after all. The only other people who'd know this number would be... Oh, wait, that's right. I'd given it to those detectives. If it had been one of them, I really should have picked up. I still hadn't sent the officers to my base like they said they would, so I really needed to talk to them to make sure that was still happening. The caller's phone number was displayed on the screen. It didn't seem to be anonymous. When I looked closer, I saw that I had a new voicemail. I had the vague feeling that I'd seen this number before. Just in case, I checked the call history. Okay, another delusion. There were only 5 calls on the list. Also neither. Which meant that since I'd bought the cell phone, I'd only received 5 calls. 3 of which were from Nanami. I left 2 others. The one from earlier today and the one from 5 days ago were shown as numbers instead of names, as if they hadn't been registered in my address book. They were both from the same number, 03-X733-X991. Definitely a real phone number. Considering they had gone out of their way to leave a message, it was probably someone who really wanted to tell me something. Who was it? Maybe it really was the police. It couldn't be Miss Mikun or the demon girl. They'd both been right in front of me when I'd gotten the call. So if it wasn't, then the only other possibility would be Yua? But she shouldn't have known my phone number. And besides, there was nothing else for us to talk about. Time to just get it over with and listen to it. I examined my surroundings, making sure the demon girl wasn't there, then put the phone up to my ear.
こちらは留守番電話サービスセンターです。新しいメッセージは1件です。1件目。10月17日金曜日午前8時28分の伝言です。
This is some sleeper agent shit. Instead of someone's voice, there was an incredibly familiar melody. It felt like the sound was being recorded from a short distance away from the phone. Maybe the person on the other end was near a pedestrian signal. The song being played was one you'd hear pretty often at crosswalks. It was used in order to let people with visual disabilities know when it was okay to cross. Nanami said she heard something and then began trying to cross the road, so... The song was a nursery rhyme called You May Pass, also known as Torianse. I don't know if that's Japanese or not. While there were a lot of people that knew the melody, there weren't many who knew the lyrics. Oh, and I was one of them, actually. I'd memorized them back in middle school. And again, it wasn't like I remembered them perfectly now. You may pass, you may pass. Where shall the path take us to? It is the path to Tenjin Shrine. Oh please, will you let us pass? Those with no business will not let be. To celebrate the 7 years of this child's birth, we have come with an offering. Going may prove easy, but returning is... It's stuck. But returning is wee-oo, wee-oo. This is what I'd heard from the phone. It sounded like an ambulance, which felt kind of like a bad omen. It likely didn't actually mean anything. It still made me feel pretty creeped out. A second after the traffic signal melody got cut off, an extremely loud noise that sounded like a buzzer exploded from the speakers. It was so ridiculously loud that I'd automatically shot the phone away from my ear.
なんだ
When I cautiously brought the phone back to my ear, the voicemail had already stopped playing. What was that? Right at the end there, I thought I'd just barely heard a roaring noise. It sounded like the ground itself was rumbling. Earthquake. That buzzer sound was completely separate from the pedestrian signal melody. Considering how loud it had been, the only thing I could think of was that the phone's receiver had deliberately been put up next to whatever had made that noise.
いたずら
My heart began to pound. Had I done something to make someone hate me enough to do that? Who'd even called me in the first place? I could call them back by dialing the number displayed on my phone, but there was no way I'd be able to call back a prank caller. In the end, all I could do was just leave it. Besides, I was stuck in the middle of a situation far worse than any prank call. I returned my phone to my pocket and ever so carefully left the school, making sure to pay close attention to my surroundings as I escaped. Nishijo Takumi's alma mater, Kitazawa Second Elementary School, was about a 5-minute walk from the private train station. Bon Yasuji had attempted to contact Takumi's elementary school teacher over the phone, only to be told that they had unfortunately passed away. Yeah, from the, bus accident. Left with no other choice, Bon had decided to set up a meeting to speak with the person who had answered the phone instead, the head teacher, Kamio. Not long after, he had arrived at the school together with his partner. As it was a Saturday, the school gate was closed. The two detectives, Bon and Suwa, stopped in front of it and turned their attention toward the school building. The white walls of the school's exterior had been painted with a brightly colored, eye-catching mural. Due to his complete lack of knowledge on paintings or any other kind of fine art, Bon had no idea what it signified. But the way the spiral-shaped mural transitioned vertically into an array of 7 different colors reminded him of a rainbow. As Bon stared at the mural, cooling himself with his handheld fan, his partner, Suwa, pushed the intercom button next to the school gate. Suddenly, Bon looked around. He had a feeling that someone was watching him. There was a gaze that seemed to follow him everywhere, leaving him quite discomfited. What is... Yeah.
俺ってそんなにかっこいいか
He attempted to strike a casual pose, one that aimed to be dandy and refined.
先輩、何変なポーズしてるんすか？裏門の方に通用口があるんで、そっちに回ってくれって。
Bon retired from his pose with a sigh and headed toward the back of the building. It wasn't quite clear if they were saying it's something he always feels, or if just in that particular instance he feels like someone's watching them. The staff room was easy to find. As soon as they entered through the side door, all they had to do was travel down the rear entrance hallway and turn in a single corridor to arrive at the room. There was, of course, no sign of children in the school, although it was likely a mere illusion created by the By the smooth linoleum floor, the two detectives felt far colder inside the building than they had outside. There were 3 teachers in the staff room. Upon seeing the 2 detectives enter the room, one of the 3 stood up and bowed. The man who stood up was named Kamio. His mostly white hair was parted to the side, and he greeted the 2 of them with a gentle smile. Bon and Suwa showed their police badges to him almost simultaneously, returned his greeting briefly, then immediately approached the topic at hand. It was Suwa's job to ask the questions.
ここの卒業生である西条匠くんについて教えていただきたいんですが。
彼のことは印象に残っています。私は担任ではなかったから詳しくとなると無理ですが、それでも構いませんか。
Suwa nodded, taking out his notebook and preparing to write everything down.
西条くんはどんな子だったんですか？
難しい子だと聞いていました。特殊だと。
特殊？
本来なら他の生徒に混ざって勉強するのはとても困難な、病気を患っていたらしく。
具体的には？
そこまで私が言ってしまっていいのかどうか。ご家族なり医師なりに聞いていただけますか。
Schools had recently begun adopting this approach, where they would avoid any issues that may prove difficult to them. They refused to take part in anything that may earn them complaints from parents or any other parties. Such practices made it incredibly difficult for the police to do their jobs.
担任の先生はなんで亡くなったんです？
事故です。遠足の最中、乗っていたバスが陥没した道路に。
あ、自分それ知ってるっす。ニュースでやってたっすよね。
子供たちは怪我をしただけで幸い命は助かったのですが、斉藤先生だけが犠牲になってしまい、なんともやりきれない思いです。
Saito.
西条くんもその事故に巻き込まれた。
In response to Bond's question, Kamio shook his head lightly.
あの子は当日欠席していてバスには乗っていませんでした。
欠席の理由は？
病が悪化したと聞いたような覚えがありますが。
Bond, too, had a faint recollection of the accident. For multiple days following the incident, and the short glimpses Bond caught of the news, he would always see the media swarming the house of the sole boy who had not been involved in it.
あれは悲しい事故だったんですよ。
For some reason, while Kamio was repeating himself, he placed a strong emphasis on the word accident. I'm sorry, I'm just really tired, so I'm gonna call it a night, and I'll go ahead and get this uploaded. So, yeah, I'll continue tomorrow. Not the most exciting episode, I apologize, but I'll try and make up for it by getting it done earlier tomorrow. So, yeah. Have a good one, guys.